suburban lifestyle or urban city living? Which one is best for you? Well, we're gonna talk about just that. We're gonna talk about the differences between urban city nightlife or suburban lifestyle feel. And if you're thinking about making a move to Charlotte, hopefully this helps you narrow down your areas a little bit. My name is Brandy Reinschmidt. Welcome to our YouTube channel, Discover Charlotte, where we help you do just that. So if this is your first time here, be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap that notification bell and be the first to be notified when we post new weekly videos. My team and I get calls, emails, and text messages every day from people just like yourselves looking to make a move to the Charlotte, North Carolina area. So if that's you, whether it's in 9 days or 90 days, and you're thinking about making a move, send us that text message, give us that call, hop on our calendar. We'd love to connect and help make your move just a little bit easier. So in this video, we are going to help you decipher the differences between the city feel of Charlotte and the suburbia feel of the cities around Charlotte, and which one might work best for you and your family if you're considering making a move to Charlotte. And we're just gonna get into it. It'll start making sense to you, and I hope that you answer some of these questions. I know when we were looking to move to Charlotte, someone, when we visited our friends here before we moved, they're like, oh, let's go tour the suburbs of Charlotte. I had no idea what that meant because I found myself in a town called Matthews or a town called Fort Mill. And I'm thinking to myself, what in the world, where are we? I thought we were looking to move to Charlotte, and I feel like we just drove 10 minutes, or in some cases, I feel like we just drove an hour, and it's still considered a part of Charlotte. Like, I was so confused. I didn't know what it meant. And that could just be the before real estate and understanding me talking, but I feel like I'm not alone on this because I've heard it a lot from my relocation clients, that how can a city in a totally different state still be considered a suburb of Charlotte? So hopefully this video helps explain some things and give life to some things that might help you decide which route you want to go. And we're gonna dive right into it. We're gonna start off strong with the traffic and the commute times here in Charlotte. So it's kind of a running joke, and I had this conversation with two different groups of people this past weekend, and I swear to you, I did not bring it up. It wasn't like I was looking for validation on it. It just naturally came up, and I said this exact rule in a video that I made last week, and I'm like, it just keeps coming up. So when I do say that this is something I hear all the time, I am not kidding you. I hear it all the time. Anywhere you want to go in Charlotte takes 15 to 20 minutes. Rule of thumb, and I know it's weird, but that's what it is. So let me explain a little bit more. If you look at Charlotte on a map, and we do have a map video of Charlotte that I will link below, that if you want to dive into it and get a little bit more clear understanding, go ahead and do that. But if you take a look at this map, if you look at the map of Charlotte, the circle of it is 485. That outer circle, that outer highway, is a pretty good generalized idea of when we talk about Charlotte, where are we talking about. Now, you can go past that and you can see over where the Valentine area is. It is a little bit of a weirder shape, but in general speaking, again, guys, very generalized here just for ease of the video, anything within that 485 belt loop is Charlotte. So when you look at Charlotte, you can get from South Park area, which is in the South Charlotte area, all the way up to the University area, which is in the northeast corner of that city or that circle. And it takes you about 20 minutes. I'm not kidding you. Depending on traffic, it can take you 25, can take you sometimes 30, or depending on traffic, it can take you 15 minutes. And I'm not kidding you. It really, on average, does take you 15, 20 minutes to get anywhere you are in Charlotte. I know. And so let me clarify why that is. Here, which is really different for me as well, anywhere you want to go within the city, you're going to hop on a main highway. You're going to hop on 77, 485, 85, Highway 160. You're going to hop on one of those to get to your next destination. Where I lived, I thought that was so weird. We had a couple main roads that we took, but they were not large interstates and highways. They were just state roads kind of thing. So again, maybe that's a me thing. But it was different. I could go through, I guess, kind of not back roads, but more local type roads to get from A to B. Here in Charlotte, you do not do that. Here in Charlotte, you are definitely hopping on one of the major highways or interstates to get where you need to be. But that's helpful because you can get from Ballantyne, which is way South Charlotte, up to University, which is North Charlotte, in 20-25 minutes. Traffic depending on. Now, if I wanted to stay in South Park, right? Let's say I wanted to go from South Boulevard to South Park Mall. If you look distance-wise on the map, that is much, much closer than what Ballantyne is to University of Charlotte is, kind of thing, right? So we got Ballantyne here, University of Charlotte way up here in the top corner. If I go from South Boulevard to South Park, which mileage-wise is way shorter, it's going to take me 15 to 20 minutes. Why? Because you're on a smaller local type of highway, which is more heavily congested, I should say. Lower speed limits, a lot more red lights. So even though the distance might be less, it might take you even longer or the same to get there. So I say all that, I'm kind of diverting, but let me get back on track. I say all that to let you know that the commute times is going to be really, really similar no matter where you're at. And I know that sounds really weird, but what I personally notice is when I start getting up to, say, Cornelius or Mooresville, which is just north of Charlotte, still considered a suburb of Charlotte. It goes Huntersville, Cornelius, Davidson, and Mooresville. When I start getting to that like Cornelius, Mooresville area is when I personally start to feel like, oh, this is a little bit more of a commute than what I wanted. What I will say is if you travel 77, which you will find yourself traveling if you work up there or live up there and work in Charlotte, that does get really congested during work hour times, and that actually can take you about an hour to get from point A to point B. So full disclosure there, normal traffic, you're looking at about 25-30 minutes to get from one to the other. But once you get north of Cornelius, Mooresville area, you're looking at that 45-minute mark at least. So the Huntersville, you're still close. Harrisburg, you're still close. You go south into Indian Land or Fort Mill, you're still close. Tagakay even, you're still close. You get to Rock Hill, it seems a little far. So if you're going south and you're going to Rock Hill and you're going north and you get up to Mooresville, that to me personally is when your commute time starts to feel a little bit longer and when you kind of notice it. And I say that because again, even living in Charlotte, close to the city center, if I want to stay anywhere within Charlotte, it's still a 20-minute drive for me. Again, I live really close to South Park Mall, and even non-traffic times, I'm still 15 minutes away from that because of the kind of the back roads and the traffic patterns and the red lights, the amount of people and the traffic that are right there with the lower speed limits, it all takes into place. So if I can get where I need to be within 20-25 minutes, it's all the same to me. Once I reach over that 35-minute, 40-minute, that's kind of my threshold where I start to feel like, okay, this is a little bit of a longer commute time. So with all that said, your commute is going to be relatively the same. Traffic in Charlotte, no matter where you're at, is heavy. The traffic patterns are terrible here. The infrastructure was not ready for the growth that Charlotte experienced in such a short period of time. So there are parts of the city where you're gonna realize it's heavier than others. And you will find if you're on a suburb of Charlotte, you will find yourself on one of those main highways as opposed to using the inner city streets. Even if you are using the inner city streets, like if I want to go uptown, being so close to it still in Charlotte, I'm going to find myself on one of the major highways. So if you're not a major highway person, Charlotte's not going to be the best area for you in terms of commute. So in terms of time, they're even. I'm going to say like suburbs versus city life, they're pretty similar. You're gonna have more options here in the city. That's the biggest difference. So one of the next largest differences that we have is the type of a home. And this is a big variety. So the majority of Charlotte was actually established back in the 50s and 60s. Some of them even a little bit earlier, but if you look, a lot of the homes in the really classic popular Charlotte neighborhoods, the homes were built in the 50s and 60s. So with that being said, Charlotte's an older city in terms of the homes. You're gonna, in a lot of these neighborhoods, you are likely to find small ranch homes. If you're in neighborhoods like right around the city, like Cherry or Madison Park, or like the Wentworth area, there's a bunch of neighborhoods that are all just right around the inner loop of the city that they are, you know, they're going to be your smaller brick ranch homes. A lot of them have started to flip over and investors have kind of come in and taken over and done custom built homes. but you're gonna have a mixture of homes in your neighborhood. You have to be okay with that. Some people like the cookie cutter look where all the homes are the same. You have a tightly run HOA, so you know your neighbor's not gonna be able to live in like pull up a boat next door to you. If you are looking for more of that cookie cutter style home with HOAs and the yards are all well manicured and look identical, you're gonna find yourself wanting to be in that suburban lifestyle. And why is that? Why do I say that? And again, I am not saying that you cannot find a new construction home or a subdivision feel here in the city limits of Charlotte. You can. Generally speaking, you're gonna find yourself going out to Indian Land or even Indian Trail, Fort Mill, Huntersville, and those are newer developed cities because they have space. Charlotte is running out of space, so developers can't find land here to build those style homes. So if you like a little bit more flexibility, larger yards with maybe some established landscaping, a variety of homes, and when I say variety, it doesn't always mean it's good. You're gonna wanna, you could look in the city and you're okay with that. If you want different styles, you know, if you kind of like not knowing what your neighbor's house is gonna look like or some remodeling happening, you're definitely gonna wanna look inside Charlotte. The average price point right now in Charlotte is $515. That is pretty average. It's just what you get is going to vary greatly. There are neighborhoods really close to the city center right now that you're only gonna find 1,000 square foot home. And it might have a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, and that house is gonna be $515, $525. Or you can go a little bit further out, say down in the Palisades. This is a really large master plan community. They've been working on it now for, I wanna say about 10 years. They've been working on it, if not longer than Palisades. They're about ready to close it out right now, but you can get a nice house down there, a large home, a nicer, larger home right now for the mid-5s square foot. You're looking at about 1,800 square foot down there, brand new home. Again, you're gonna have maybe 0.15 acre of a lot, give or take a little bit. You're gonna have, you know, cleared lots, flat lots for the most part. You're gonna have the siding on the homes. You're gonna have 4 different floor plans. So that's kind of what I mean when I say cookie cutter style homes, is every home looks the same. It's built by a large developer. They're in there at one time. It's a master plan community. So we do have a handful of those here in Charlotte, but most of the time people find themselves looking out in the suburbs of the city if that's what they're looking for. So if you're looking for a larger home, more bang for your buck, a little bit more move-in ready, you're gonna find yourself going to the suburbs such as Indian Land, Fort Mill, Huntersville, even Harrisburg. What you're gonna find in this city inside Charlotte depends on the location. And I know it's kind of a wide, you can go to the university area and get a pretty similar sized home. You know, that 2,000 square foot, 2,300 square foot home, it's going to be older. That's the difference. The homes in those areas were built in the 70s versus the newer construction homes built in the early 2000s or later that you can find in the suburbs of Charlotte. So the suburbs are just a newer area of Charlotte, newly developed spaces around the Charlotte area. Not to say that you can't find older homes in those areas. Concord and Kannapolis are actually 2 really old cities here in the area. They're old mill towns. So you can definitely find some historic homes in those areas. Even Fort Mill, you've got some historic homes down there. But generalized speaking, again, if you're looking for variety, you're looking for a little bit more character in your neighborhood, some larger lots, some more established landscaping, you're gonna wanna look inside Charlotte. If you like the cookie cutter, you like the easy maintenance, you want an HOA, you kind of like that predictability of what are you gonna get, you're gonna find yourself looking out in the suburbs of the city. The next topic we are going to cover is schools. While I cannot legally give you my personal opinion on this or my preferences, or even share with you certain things that my clients have said, I can provide you information based on 2 of my trusted sources. I use greatschools.org and niche.com when my clients ask me about schools. And again, I'm not going to ignore this topic because it is one of the most frequently asked questions when people are relocating here, especially if you have a family. So I'm going to provide you information based on these sources. They are 2 really good sources. They do a really, really deep dive into these schools and they rate them. Niche.com does a grading scale, A, B, C, D kind of thing, where greatschools.org does a scale of 1 through 10. And these 2 sites look at everything from student to teacher ratio all the way down to the food that they serve at these schools. I'm not even kidding you, it is in depth. So if you're moving here with your family or intention of a family and schools are important to you, be sure to hop on those sites and do your research on them. In general, what I will say is North Carolina does not typically stand high on the overall public schooling systems. Deeper than that, if you look at the Mecklenburg County schools and you're comparing them to the surrounding suburbs and the surrounding counties, you will find that Mecklenburg County schools do tend to fall lower than counties such as Union or Iredell. Suburbs such as Mooresville, Huntersville, and Fort Mill, usually if you're comparing schools, they have the higher school ratings. So families do find themselves moving to the suburbs of Charlotte if they are moving here and if schools is on the top of their must-have list. And that can go, there's several different reasons why that happens. Obviously, you can get more bang for your buck in terms of housing in the suburbs. So if you're moving here and you're a family of 3, you could probably pull off a 3-bedroom house in a good school district here in Charlotte, and you still have plenty of room. If you're a family of 4 or even a family of 5, you're not gonna fit in that 3-bedroom house. So you're gonna find yourself going to a larger home in the suburbs, getting more bang for your buck. So there's a lot that goes into it, but again, if top school zones are a high priority for you, you will likely find yourselves living in the suburbs of Charlotte. But definitely do your own research. Go on greatschools.org, hoponniche.com. That is where this information is pulled from if you're comparing apples to apples. And moving on, we're going to talk about the overall vibe, the overall lifestyle here in Charlotte City versus Charlotte suburbs. What I find most people, and I think this is across the board, what I find is once you find a place to live and you call it home, you tend not to leave your circle that often. So for example, what I mean by that is if you live up in the university area, even though it's only a 20-minute drive, you don't find yourself coming to South Charlotte often. You find your places that you like and you tend to stay there, which is why most people are very picky when it comes to location and where they live. So with that said, if you are inside Charlotte city limits, you have a handful of entertainment district options. You've got districts such as Camp North End, you've got South End, Noda, Plaza Midwood, and Montford. Those are your top entertainment districts where they're a little walkable. You've got lots of restaurants, you've got coffee shops, you've got some music venues at some of the locations. You've got nightlife like comedy clubs and dance clubs if you want. So you've got that variety there. You also have your day-to-day lifestyle. You've got your Harris Teeter is usually no more than 10 minutes away from you. You do have a mixture of down or like neighborhood pockets like Elizabeth and Dilworth where you will find some main streets with additional restaurants and shops on it. Now, if you head out to the suburbs, this is less likely. You will typically have your one Harris Teeter that you go to. You will typically have a lot of neighborhoods that have neighborhood amenities are out in the suburbs, such as pools and clubhouses. And so you might have a lot of activities going on in your neighborhood. Inside Charlotte does have less of that tight-knit neighborhood pools and clubhouses and neighborhood activities. So you've got more variety here in the city. If you go out the suburbs, you have less variety. And if you want that variety, you will likely have to hop in your car and drive to a different suburb or into Charlotte city limits. Here in Charlotte, depending on where you're at, you do have the light rail, which is one of our main public transportation systems. So if I'm in Plaza and I want to hop into Uptown, I can just hop on that light rail. If I want to spend the day in South End and then head to a Panthers game or a baseball game, I can start in South End at the light rail and then take it uptown and then take it to Noda, and then I can even take it all the way up to the university area if I want. If you're in Fort Mill, you don't have that option. You'll have to get in your car and drive to the light rail, so I might as well get in your car and drive to Uptown, your next destination. So Charlotte offers more of that city life, more of that urban feeling. So while we're not Chicago, while we are not New York, and you cannot really walk from one borough to the next borough or neighborhood, whatever you want to call it, there's a couple like Plaza Midwood and Noda. Those are 2 neighborhoods that are neighboring neighborhoods. They both have some restaurants and bars and boutiques in them that you can walk in, like in between those neighborhoods kind of. But in general, you're not going to go from South End all the way up to Noda. Generally speaking, you can, right on the light rail kind of thing. But so with all that said, you tend to stay in your pockets, right? So Charlotte has those pockets in Charlotte has a lot more variety and a lot more options, where the pockets within the suburbs tend to be strip malls, a lot of commercial use. So you have your Marshalls, your TJ Maxx, anchored by Harris Teeters. less local feeling. So pretty standard for any subdivision or suburbia lifestyle is you've got more of the commercial chains. It's more for larger, quantity versus quantity, or quantity versus quality. Yes, that's it. That type of mindset. So you're still going to get the great stores out there. You're just going to get larger strip malls with larger commercial stores in it versus your Charlotte city centers or your Charlotte shopping areas. You have more of a local, more boutiques, just more variety in general is basically the moral of that story. So nightlife, if you're looking for nightlife, Charlotte's going to be your best bet. The suburbs around Charlotte don't really have nightlife. They're not known for their fancy restaurants, or they're not known for their late night scene. Now, I will say up on Lake Norman, there are some great restaurants in Davidson. That is a suburb of Charlotte, but these don't stay open super late either. So your nightlife, you're definitely going to find more here in the Charlotte city area versus the surrounding suburbs. Convenience is going to be the same. If you had to put it hand in hand, depending on where you're at in some of those suburbs, I know if you move down to Indian Land is still getting it's really still getting built up. It still kind of feels a little rural depending on what area you're in. But you're never further than 15 minutes to your next strip mall. Here in Charlotte, you just might not have the strip malls. You might just have to go directly to that store. So depends on what you want. If you want variety, stay within Charlotte city limits. If you are just here for convenience and consistency, the suburbs might be the best bet for you. If you are looking for nightlife, Charlotte's going to be your place. If you're looking for a really tight-knit neighborhood, the suburbs are going to be your place. So take a look. Really, I always say when people are looking to make a move, write down what is most important to you. And I don't mean, well, we need 4 bedrooms and 5 bathrooms or whatever it is. What is your lifestyle like? Do you need a yard because you're out in the suburbs and you like to entertain a lot? You like to have your neighborhood over. So you want a large flat yard, a large open yard, or do you just want a space that you can let your dogs out with the fence in it and you don't have to walk them 5 times a day? When you say convenience and amenities, what does that mean? Do you like to be able to walk to a coffee shop, or do you just want to be able to stop at Harris Teeter on your way home and grab something for dinner? So really dive into what is important to your lifestyle, what would make your life easy, because overall you are moving for something happening in your life, whether it's your empty nesters or your family's growing or you relocated for a job, whatever that looks like, you're moving for a reason. So be sure to hone in on those reasons, talk to your agent and help you figure out what's most important to you, and they will be able to guide you in that direction. So I hope this video is helpful. If you have any questions or thoughts on it, be sure to drop a comment below. I'd love to hear from you.